The days are longer, the calendar is filling up, and I want to feel as good as this beautiful summer weather. That's why I've been loving Groons. It's one daily pack of gummies that covers my greens, vitamins, and minerals, and even has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber, so I don't need to juggle a complicated wellness routine on top of everything else. They taste amazing. They're easy to toss in my bag on the go. Plus, they're vegan, gluten-free, and HSA, FSA eligible for reimbursement. Save up to 52% off with promo code podcast at gruns.co. That's code podcast at gruns.co.
How do you keep your family healthy this season when it feels like everyone around you is getting sick? I use Sambicol. It's drug-free and scientifically tested to help support your immunity. Sambicol has the power of black elderberry in every purple bottle. It comes in tablets, syrup, chewables, or my kids' favorite, the great-tasting gummies. So this cold and flu season, support your family's immunity with Sambicol Black Elderberry. It's the only one I trust for my family. And best of all, my kids love it too.
Test, 1, 2. Can you make my ears a little louder? Test, 1, 2. That's perfect.
Test. It can't make your ears louder.
I know.
Make the sound louder in your ears.
Back by popular demand to co-host the Russo-Souhan show because Jim is on an airplane flying to Baltimore for opening day of the Twins, which is earlier than normal. Tomorrow, right?
Tomorrow.
Yeah, normally isn't it always after April or back when I was a kid?
There have been a couple of years where it's fallen in March, but
it's probably smart not to have it here with I think snow's coming Friday and Saturday.
Yeah, it's balmy in Baltimore, I'm sure.
All right, good point. It's so nice to have Anthony LaPanta here from Fox Sports North. This is Michael Russo from The Athletic. This is the Russo-Souhan Show. Very happy to be with you again. We are brought to you by Twill from the Galleria. Twill, Scott Dayton's incredible clothing store. Who was it the other day that just told me, oh, my friend the Connors, they went there and they all bought stuff from Twill and the Galleria. Hopefully they mentioned the podcast. Fixology Repair, both in the Mall of America, and there's also a location in downtown Minneapolis in the Skyway, right by Dunn Brothers, right outside the Wells Fargo building. And then my State Farm agent, Tony Hoaglund, who, by the way, I got my, luckily I have not had canceled coverage. I got my my upcoming 6 months car insurance today. And as you know, Anthony, I've never been into a car accident. Right. So my
except for that one time and that other time and that other time and that other time.
Yes. Yeah, there were.
Hoagland's got to be making some money off of you.
I really haven't been since that time. If you don't know, I might have been in a car accident in Beverly Hills once with Anthony in his car, his lovely wife, Stev, his brother, his sister-in-law, and Chad Graff from Now The Athletic. Although when I was in the car accident, I looked in the rearview mirror and Chad didn't. He was like watching the Nebraska football game on his phone, and he didn't even like flinch. And then I'm like, well, maybe this was my imagination, and I wasn't in a car accident.
It wasn't your imagination, and the line immediately was, "I've never been in an accident." And
no, I think what I said is again.
Except that you had proclaimed you'd never been in an accident. By the time we got to the end of that night, we had heard of about 7.
I'm like, not again. But what happened was I went to a wedding that summer, and I kind of bashed it. I was parking in a really tight parking garage, and I hit like one of those yellow poles. And what I meant by again was that I had to go through insurance, like, rental car insurance for that. And this one was tough. Just a real quick story. So this happened in Beverly Hills, and the reason why we went there is that I didn't have a lot to write that day for the Strib, so I was going to take everybody sightseeing because Anthony brought his family out there. And so then immediately we get to Beverly Hills and we're in this car accident. And so we pulled to the side of the road, and Chad Graff, Anthony, and his brother decide to go to a gas station to get hors d'oeuvres.
We went to a supermarket. we waited for a while, and
Right.
we were getting bored with how long it was taking. So we actually set out to go see if we could grab a cocktail somewhere.
Yeah.
And the initial
you.
thought was that...
And left me with the broken car and waiting for the cops.
Right. And the nutso driver of the other car. But
She worked at Bloomingdale's.
we went down to try to find like just a place we could grab a cocktail. We couldn't find one. We found a supermarket. So we thought, well, let's just grab a bottle of wine. We'll bring it back there. We can turn this into a little bit of a picnic or something. And when we went up to pay for the wine at, let's say it was like a Whole Foods type place in Beverly Hills, and we walked up there and I said, by the way, do you have an opener we can borrow? And the guy looked at us kind of funny. And we said, well, yeah, we're just going back up here. We thought we'd have a glass of wine, sit on the grass while we're waiting for the police to show up. And the guy looks at us and said, dude, you're in Beverly Hills, not Mazatlan. And so we had to put the wine back, but we did grab some prosciutto and some crackers and trail mix.
Yeah, that was another. So I'm waiting for the cops, and this whole time Margot is staying with me. Margot, Anthony's wife, and at this point, I really don't know Margot. Right? I mean, this is still kind of like
fairly early for
beginning
sure.
of our friendship, and I didn't know Margot, and I'm like, wow, this is really nice that while her husband went to go buy prosciutto and wine,
that seems a little harsh.
Yeah, that she would stay with me. And then so now I'm dealing with the cops, and I come back to the car, and she goes, hey, can you help me out of the car? I can't open the door. She would only stay with me because her passenger door was pinned and was unopenable. So that was funny. So then we leave, and normally I'm a really like level-headed guy, not a lot of panic, and I'm leaving, and I'm a little stressed that I now have to call the insurance company, because I was just in this car accident, and we're driving, and Stev, who's Anthony's brother, who I think I've just met on this trip, all of a sudden he puts this tray up of food between the center console and Margot, who's still in the passenger seat, and he goes, prosciutto? And I look at him, and honestly, I'm driving, and there's like 3 seconds where I'm paused, and I turn, and I'm like, I don't really want prosciutto right now. So
the call to your insurance company was comical too, because so then we did go find a place to stop, and the sightseeing tour was over because one of us was marching around on the phone with an insurance company, which was the longest phone calls ever.
Well, they wanted.
How long does it take to call and say, "Yeah, I just got hit. I'll call you when I get back to the Twin Cities."
Yeah.
But he's on the phone, marching up and down Rodeo Drive as we're sitting in some little deli because the rest of us decided, well, I guess we're not going sightseeing anymore, so let's just stop here. And every time he'd come back and he'd say, hey, I need your birth date or your social security number. And it got to the point where
she wanted, there were 5 people in the car with me, right? 5. And she wanted the witnesses, every information, birth date, address, name, everything. So, and it's funny because I wrote it on the back of my insurance card, and so for the next 2 years, on everybody's birthday, I knew what their birthday was because I had it written in my wallet.
And there are some times where we would push some buttons, perhaps, to see if we could add to the stress level. So as he'd come back to the table where we're sitting with a bottle of wine, and I need your address and your home phone number, and well, do they need anything from the woman that you hit? And he'd put the phone down and, she hit me.
She did. She did. Admit it. Finally, admit that she hit me.
I really wasn't paying attention.
I know. I'm well aware.
We were sitting in the back seat. All I do know is that you almost got in another accident that night when we were driving on the freeway.
That's true.
And because there's some rubbing sound going on in this minivan that you had rented, and we're riding in the back, and all of a sudden we almost get in another accident. He slams on the brakes on the freeway, and we got trail mix everywhere in the car, and
yeah, it was
Chad and I were about to just get out and call Uber just to make sure we got to the next stop on time.
Oh my God! All right, so go to State Farm, Tony Hoaglund. This might have been the best Tony Hoaglund ad ever. So anyway, Gophers. They coach left. I've read that somewhere. I think, on The Athletic, and they just man, did they act swiftly. It's funny because I think we all just figured that it was going to be between Gensel and Motzko, and that they were going to do everything to make Motzko say no. And then if it wasn't Motzko, you have a great plan B. Were you shocked at how quickly, though, that not only did they act, but the fact that just 3, 4, 5 days after they get upset in the first round of the NCAA tournament, boom, Motzko's a gopher again?
I was not surprised at all by how fast they moved. I think that they knew from the time, and all the stories that you read surrounding Don Lucia's departure hinted at the fact that this had been discussed late in the regular season, that there was a very good chance this was going to happen at the end. And I believe the athletic department probably had in their mind already an idea. There were some very obvious lead candidates for this position. And I think as soon as St. Cloud State lost, they were immediately in contact. And I would have been surprised if it would have taken more than a week or so, just because I think they wanted to get things locked in, get them in place, be fair to everybody, give everybody the most time possible to make whatever other adjustments they had to make. There's a lot of questions. I mean, as we've seen already, there's players debating whether they're going to come back to universities or they're going to sign professional contracts. And I think they just didn't want to have any of that up in the air to make sure that as many of their players as possible can make the most educated decision to stay. Whether they choose to stay or go under Motzko, at least they have an idea of who's going to be the guy in charge, and they can make the decision that way rather than, well, I don't know who's going to be my head coach, so I think I'll sign or whatever. So it didn't surprise me at all. I think they had a very good candidate in Mike Gensel if Motzko had said no. I think Motzko was a tough guy to pass on with the success he's had at St. Cloud. 8 times in 13 years he takes them to the NCAAs, and I think he's got logical Minnesota ties, having been an assistant here. I hope that it works out that Mike Gensel stays on his staff, because I don't think there's anybody that is more Golden Gopher hockey through and through, bleeds maroon and gold, lives and dies with that program than Mike Gensel. Played there, coached there, has been a part of it forever. I hope that works out. I know the two of them were close when they were both assistants back in the early 2000s. I know they've maintained a friendship even though they've coached against each other over recent years. I've had a chance to sit and visit with the two of them together. I know that they're friends. I hope that stays intact, because I think the program would be better to have both of those guys be involved in it. And so it didn't surprise me at all to see it move fast. Didn't surprise me at all that Motzko was the first guy they targeted. Had Motzko said no and they had gone another direction, that would have surprised me. But I still think that almost any coach you talk to, particularly coaches that have ties to Minnesota in some way, shape, or form, this is still the crown jewel job for college athletics. You're in the biggest market, you've got the most light on you, you have a lot of advantages over other college programs. And we'll see now if Motzko can restore some of that magic that Minnesota had for years. Yeah,
it does seem like, the one thing I think I've talked to you about is like what I liked what Lucia said on his outgoing presser, which I thought was very classy, was he did say that it's up to the fans now to embrace Big Ten hockey. It's not going back. It's now up to the Gophers to actually catch some of these other teams. At the beginning of this, when the Gophers were the great program and all these other teams stunk, I think that led to a lot of the lack of care from a lot of the fan base. But there comes a point where you just got to say, hey, you know what? I'm a Gophers fan and I want to come back to the games, and just. Now the competition actually is a lot better when you look at the Michigans and the teams like that.
Well, no doubt, but there were two prongs to that. One was the competition, and the first couple of years of the Big Ten, it was down. Michigan State just happened to be down. Ohio State was about the same as they had been. Wisconsin was down. So you wound up with Minnesota and Michigan as being the only two clubs that really had any national prominence. And Michigan didn't have some of their best teams over those years. And Minnesota won the first 5 regular season championships. So now the competition has changed. Notre Dame's addition was a big addition for the league. Penn State emerging now as a legitimate national powerhouse, really, and Ohio State is suddenly on the map. So you have 3 of the Frozen 4 teams are Big Ten teams. So the competition is a part of it, there's no doubt. But the other part that they may never be able to restore is the rivalry element to it. And not that there won't be rivalries with, say, Minnesota and Michigan when both teams are good. There were rivalries with Minnesota and Michigan when there was no Big Ten.
Right.
When they would come in and play the showcase series every year where Minnesota and Wisconsin would face Michigan and Michigan State in late November, early December every year. Those games had rivalry feel to them. But what was different about what the old WCHA had was regional rivalries where the fans were more engaged in it because of proximity.
Right.
So Minnesota would play St. Cloud in a home-and-home series, and you'd have fans from each team making the drive into the building. You'd have Minnesota going to Duluth, to Mankato, to even to Grand Forks, to Bemidji. You had half of your league's road trips were drivable for your fans. Now you have one in Wisconsin. All the rest of them require you to buy a plane ticket. And that's never going to be the same because fans they're just not going to do that. I mean, they might jump in a car and drive to Madison. They're very unlikely to buy a plane ticket and go to Detroit to watch the Gophers play Michigan State in East Lansing. So, and their fans aren't going to come here. So it's just going to be different. You're never going to have what the old WCHA had. It's just a fact of life. So I think that's what Coach Lucia's point was embrace it. The Big Ten is here to stay. So stop saying it's not going to be the same. It'll never be the same as it was with St. Cloud and Duluth. We're going to play those teams most years anyway. So embrace the fact that the Big Ten is great hockey with big universities that have very good teams. And let's build a different kind of tradition right now with these clubs. And that'll be the challenge for Motzko because, number one, you've got to find a way now, to your point. Notre Dame is... They're on top right now in terms of the Big Ten. Michigan is a Frozen Four team. Ohio State is Steve Rollins done a tremendous job there. Penn State just beat you 4 times in a row at the end of the season. So there's some teams that you're now chasing in terms of talent. But the other thing that Motzko will have to do is restore the magic with the in-state rivalries. They tried to do it with the Showcase series where they would play 3 of the 4. They'd bring 3 of the 4 other state schools down for the tournament at the Xcel Energy Center, and then Minnesota would play a series against the other. But Minnesota was on the losing end of all those. You got to get back to where Minnesota is now. That's the biggest series of the year for the visiting teams because they're trying to prove they belong at the same level as Minnesota, which is what it always used to be, and that's what Motzko's challenge will be. Restore dominance within the state and then find a way to convince fans that those rivalries with Notre Dame and Michigan. I was at Mariucci when Minnesota played Notre Dame late in the season this year, and that was similar feel to some of those old WCHA series. The building was about 3/4 full. Notre Dame was ranked highly nationally. There was some energy in the building, and it was fun to see. There were 2 very good games, and it just happened to be a weekend when I was at home and the Wild were off, and I was able to go over and see a couple games. And it won't take long to convince people that coming to watch a series against Notre Dame or Michigan or even Ohio State is worth watching. But you have to be relevant yourself competitively to be able to do that.
Right. Let's switch gears, talk about the Wild. But first, and by the way, we have a ton of Twitter questions, an awesome one. So we'll get to that as well. But again, we are nothing without our sponsors. The show would absolutely not exist without our sponsors. And one of our early sponsors was Scott Dayton and his awesome clothing store at the Galleria, Twill.
Hi, I'm Stacy Souhan. I love Twill. Scott Dayton shop in the Edina Galleria. Twill takes the stress out of shopping by offering updated traditional fashion. I know that if Jim goes in there shopping alone, I will like what he buys, whether it's pajamas, flannel shirts, or suits. I plan to recommend Twill to my daughter when she has to buy wedding party gifts and attire. Twill in the Edina Galleria will bring your fashion game to a championship level.
And by the way, you getting ready for Italy? Have you packed?
We leave, July 9th?
Yeah.
I'll pack on the 8th.
Yeah. Remember, wasn't it that AJ was coming on a trip with us and you threw AJ at 1 minute before the flight that you were leaving at 4 a.m. threw everything in a duffel bag? Was it Vegas last year?
Yeah, we were going to Vegas and we were the Wild.
Your oldest son,
my oldest son, AJ. We were coming home from Nashville. Mm-hmm. The Wild had played in Nashville, and then we were on our way. This is before Vegas had a team, so this is a couple of years ago. We're flying out to the Wild, are about to go on a West Coast trip to play Anaheim, LA, and San Jose. And because they had 3 or 4 days off in the middle, we were going to fly to stop in Vegas on the way. So we had played a Saturday night game in Nashville and flew home with the team. And then AJ and I had an early, like first thing in the morning, 6 a.m. Sunday flight to Vegas. This was during the NFL playoffs a couple of years ago. So I flew home with the team from Nashville, landed at 1:30-ish in the morning. Vinny, my other son, had driven up to Collegeville to pick AJ up from school to bring him down so that he could catch the flight with me first thing in the morning. So they met me at the airport at 1:30 to pick me up when the Wild landed. And then AJ and I basically went home, slept for about 2 hours, and drove back to the airport to catch a commercial flight to Vegas at 6 a.m. And so when we got home, he gets out of the back seat of the car and said, well, where's all your stuff? Oh, it's in the trunk. So we opened up the trunk. He didn't bring a bag, or he just threw all of his clothes in the trunk.
Isn't it like a garbage bag or something?
No, that's what he thought he was going to put them in when he got home. He was, well, I'll just throw them in a garbage bag. Well, you can't check a garbage bag as your checked luggage. So his thought,
by the way,
was,
just to interject, this is his physics major son.
Right, yeah, graduated with like a 4.4 GPA or something. I mean, it was a near perfect ACT score. He's brilliant, but doesn't have a clue. So his thought was that he was going to come home and do his laundry. So in the 2 hours or 2.5 hours that we were in our house before we drove back to the airport, he was going to do his laundry and then just throw all his clean clothes in a hefty bag and bring it to the airport, check that bag to fly to Vegas. And so we came up with a duffel bag option instead, but that was the case. So we got up after a couple hours of sleep and went to the airport.
I remember that trip. The thing that I remember about that trip the most is that I had a suite in Vegas, the Planet Hollywood there, and we're playing it was a bunch of your friends there, and we played a kind of a house card game in my suite, playing poker. And I pride myself on being a really good poker player, and I'm playing against your clueless son. So again, Anthony's the dip dad, and AJ's the clueless son. And I'm playing head to head.
Both of us finished ahead of Russo in this card game.
Well, here's why. Okay, so I'm like sitting on what I think is the best hand, and AJ decides to play 3-8 offsuit against me, and wins, and knocks me out of the tournament first. Which I was to this day, I'm like, 3-8 offsuit you're playing? And he had no clue what he had, right? Didn't he? He
was thinking he was betting on his previous hand.
Yeah, he was this is what I lost to.
He said, I thought I had Queen Jack or something.
I'm like, well, you have 3-8 offsuit.
But he got you to buy in and go all in, and then he won. And when I turned to him and I said, AJ, what? I mean, why were you? I mean, did you really think you were going to bluff him? He was already in.
Yeah.
And he said, I actually thought I had Queen Jack, but that was last hand.
It's like, this is unbelievable. I'm like, anyway. All right, now I'm
So you were the first one out.
Yeah, first one out. And there's nothing worse than being first one out in a house game, because now you're like automatic dealer for the next 2 hours until you play a second game.
The stress you deal with.
Yes, exactly. So Italy is the reason why I brought this up. Is AJ's coming on this Italy trip with, so are you and your wife, and my and we got unbelievable 20.
Great.
It is gonna be awesome. 29 people signed up. But the reason why I brought this up is actually, if you still are listening out there and have any interest in going on this Italy trip, the airfares that have been reserved need to be confirmed next week. So there is a couple spots left that they confirmed, kind of pre-confirming airfares. So there are a couple left. We have 29 people that are signed up. If you are interested in going and experiencing incredible wine, food, culture with Anthony and myself, go to definedestinations.com. Look at it. You can actually reserve the trip on there if you're interested in going. Again, definedestinations.com. It's going to be an awesome trip.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. The more I've thought about it as we get closer to it and have started to do a little more research into where we're going and what we're going to visit, I'm so excited to go and see some of the things we're going to see. We're going to see a couple of great vineyards that are a couple of my favorite Italian Tuscan red wines, and it's going to be an awesome trip, and we'll have a blast too. We have a lot of time to spend together and just kind of visit and chat and talk wild hockey, talk wine, talk Italian food, and I'm in it to learn too, right with them, with all the rest of the fans, guests that are coming. It's going to be a lot of fun.
I mean, this is we call myself the fake Italian. You're the full Italian. It is both our homelands. We both our last names end in vowels. But I've been to Italy 3 or 4 times. You've actually never been there, so it's going to be an incredible trip, especially for you and your wife. And it's your 50th birthday this summer, your anniversary over this time, so it'll be fun. Max Hansen asks, and this is a perfect segue to what I wanted to talk to you about: is why are the Wild so bad in OT and shootouts? I did want to talk to you. There was a lot of criticism last night about Boudreau won pretty much starting the same set that he did against Boston. The Wild have lost now 5 of their last 6 games that have ended in overtime, and then obviously lost last night in a shootout. It's funny. I mean, it's like they're 1 pointing their way to the postseason here. They've got points in 6 straight, but 3 of those in overtime and shootout losses. Now, the one thing is that he did switch Brodin and Dumba last night. So Brodin started against Nashville in overtime. Suter started against Boston, but he went with Dumba again and Coyle. Fans flipped that Dumba was out there, but again, think of this logically. Spurgeon's hurt, so if you're not starting Dumba, you're starting either Prosser or Murphy there, assuming that you want to start a right shot D, or you go with 2 forwards.
Right? And
do you think that needs to change?
Not necessarily. Remember, the struggles they had early in the season were remedied when he started to go with this plan of attack. And let's start Charlie Coyle with 2 defensemen to open the overtime sequence. A lot of times you're facing the other team's best players at that time. Coyle's a responsible guy who can skate. You've got 2 defensemen that are now put you in a better spot to defend. And then once you get puck possession, now you make your change, you put your scorers out there, and they had great success with that. I'm not at all concerned about it, and there's 2 reasons. Number one is, if you look at last night's game, when we're talking about the game in Nashville where Minnesota ended up losing in a shootout, granted, Nashville had a goal that was overturned by offsides, but then after that,
it was all Minnesota.
The game's on Stahl's stick, and he fires one that goes off the shaft of Renee's stick. Granlund hits a post. It was all Wild from there to the finish. So all you can do as a coach is put your guys in spots where you have the most chances and then roll the dice and hope for the best. They had the most chances.
Let me ask you a question that has been bothering me, and I think I know the answer, but I have not asked Boudreau. Maybe you have. You get private time also with Boudreau as a rights holder that some of us don't get. And I think it's because when I did that analytics chart in November of how bad they have been in overtime in 3-on-3, Jason Zucker as a forward has been on the most goals against, more than even the Koivus and the Suters. Why the heck does he not get a shift? He gets 1 shift every overtime, and it's always with about 3:34 minutes in.
Well, I think that part of it just depends on how the puck possession goes. So a lot of times you wind up,
but he'll double shift Zach or Koivu.
But I think
before even going with Zucker.
I think a lot of times it just depends on matchup. Yeah. So usually Mikko starts a shift because it's your best faceoff guy. Mm-hmm. So it's very rare that they go to a change and bring Mikko on the ice. He usually gets his shift when it's a faceoff. Zucker's not a faceoff guy. He's not a great puck possession guy. I mean, when you look at the plays, and that's part of the reason why it took so long in his career to get power play time, because he's more of like a create stuff off loose pucks, create loose pucks, great on the forecheck, but he's not a great, okay, we've got a 5-on-4, who do we want the puck just on his stick to make plays? And that wasn't just Boudreau. I mean, Yo saw it the same way. Torchetti saw it the same way. And overtime is similar, where he's not a maintained possession guy. He's more of a get in there on the forecheck, and he's got tremendous skill on that. He's got tremendous skill when you create a loose puck in your own zone and he bolts out of the zone. But none of those things are factors in an overtime setting.
And and my guess is that privately, at least Bruce would say, is who leads this team in more odd man rushes without getting a shot off, and it winds up being a turnover than Jay. And I really do think I think that if Boudreau, because there's got to be a reason. It's happened in the last obviously it didn't happen against Boston because the game was over, but every overtime he's getting his first shift with a minute left, and I think that Boudreau doesn't trust that he's going to make the right decision with the puck.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He's not the best puck possession guy, but just look at what your other options are too. So you start with Coyle and 2 defenders. Now you get possession of the puck and it's in the flow. Don't you want to see Stahl and Granlund? Those are probably your 2 most creative offensive players. So those 2 guys come on. Now let's say you get a whistle. Well, now you're going to throw Mikko back out there because you want to win the faceoff. You haven't seen Zach Parise yet at this time. And perhaps you're even ready to go back to Coyle because he might have been on the bench for a minute and a half or 2 minutes by this moment. So sometimes you just get into the flow of it where your better options are rested. Why not go to those guys? If need be or the opportunity presented, I don't think he'd have a problem playing Zucker. And the other thing, here's the bigger thing that I'm not worried about it. 5 games from the end of the regular season, 6 games, games are no longer going to be decided 3-on-3 or in shootouts. Mm-hmm. So whether you're winning or losing those games right now, this is not the time to worry about it. If it's week 3 of the season and you're looking ahead at, hey, we're going to have 15 games where points are going to be on the line in the extra session, let's make some adjustments and figure it out. Right now, in a week and a half, no more games will be decided on who's the best 3-on-3 team or who's great in shootouts. So right now, get yourself into the overtime, earn the extra point, and hope for the best. We'll worry about it for next year. You look at this last stretch of games, and you mentioned they have points in 6 of them. These last 4 games have all had a playoff feel to them. Really 5 out of 6 if you throw in the road game in Vegas, because maybe Arizona was the exception. But the homestand where you had the Kings, the Predators, and the Bruins, and now into Nashville, those are teams that are on top of their game right now, and every one of those games had a playoff intensity to it, had a battle level that you're going to see in the playoffs. And Minnesota lost 3 of them, but all 3 of them were in extra time. So to go 3-0-3 over those games, which really means you're 3-0 in games that were decided in fashions where they'll be decided moving into the playoffs, I think Minnesota feels pretty good about the way they're playing right now, and I feel ultimately confident in the way they're competing against teams that are on top of their game.
Shootout, and let's make this quick, and then we'll go into Twitter questions. But shootout, last night, a lot of fans very upset that the shootout picks. You know, it starts with Nino, then goes to Zach, who, by the way, has the 3rd most shootout goals in the history of the league at 42, and was 2 for 2 this year. And then the one that I think is correct is Koivu. Throwing Koivu out there in a must-score situation when he is 0 for 5 this season at that point and 2 for 8 the previous 2 years, he has lost his mojo, man, in shootouts. He's now 2 for his last 14 in shootouts.
Have you talked to Mikko about it?
Well, the funny thing is that a couple years ago, I brought up to him, I said to him, why do you keep on going back to your backhand move? You know, like everybody knows it.
Just the opposite.
And now, but so he said, he goes, you know, oh, that's my bread and butter, blah, blah, blah. Now he never goes to it.
And if it were me, that's what we talked about this last night on the broadcast. Just go to the move.
Yeah.
It's provided as many shootout goals for Mikko as almost anybody in the history of the game. And I don't care if goaltenders know it's coming. If when he executes it properly, they don't stop it.
I just think
this year, I think he's 0 for 6. And I think I only remember one where he went to that same move and he missed. He had the goalie beat. But he flipped it just over the crossbar.
I think last night, if you asked him, he said he probably would have gone with that if it wasn't Rene. You know, he's beaten Rene with that number of times. He's his countryman. They know each other. He knows them. You know, Rene knows that move's coming. I bet you that he would have probably gone.
I think it's just classic overthink. And we do the same thing. Like, oh, why don't you use this guy or that guy or whatever? I mean, Stahl's not a shootout guy. In fact, I don't know if you watched the feature we did with Stahl on his wrist shots. And I specifically asked him, I said, when you come in on breakaways, you very rarely make a move. You're usually just picking a spot and going. And he said, I'm not a big move guy. And I feel like if I try to make a move to get the goaltender moving to open him up, I got a chance. But number 1, I got to get him to open up. And number 2, then I got to hit the spot with my backhand.
Yeah. Whereas
if I just pick a spot, if I hit my spot, I'm usually going to, I think I have a better chance to score doing that. Now, ironically, he scored the game-tying goal by taking a pass and then making a quick move to his backhand. He didn't really have a wrist shot option, but he talks about the fact that that's not his strength. So he's not a great option with that, I don't think. I mean, if you play another round, maybe he's the next guy you go to and just take your shot with a wrist shot like Brian Ralston used to do with the slap shot. But you get guys like, Jason Zucker. I mean, Zucker's a solid breakaway guy, but he's kind of similar to Mikko, where he's got the quick forehand to backhand move. I don't know. I mean, again, because of where you are in the season, I don't overthink it. You got another week and a half where games are decided in a shootout, and then after that, you're not. So maybe next year make some different decisions, or talk to Mikko and say, look, if I put you out there, I want to see the move it's your best move. Let's get beat with him stopping your best instead of overthinking it.
I think, and Bruce has kind of mentioned it before. I just think sometimes, there's so much ego on this team that he just felt like, I got to give it to the freaking captain, and he publicly has said that because people flipped in one of my articles earlier this year that Mikko wants to go in the shootout. And I just think that's sometimes the problem with this team is that you have some very strong personalities that even this coach feels like he should go to. And, to me, I would rather see a Stahl, a Coyle, a Zucker, or Granlund.
He's used Coyle a fair amount. In fact, a lot of times Coyle's the first shooter.
Yep.
But I just think I look at it a little bit differently. I look at it as not necessarily managing an ego. If I'm a coach, I'm always going to say, look, if I'm going to get beat, I want to get beat with my best guy out there. Now, if I'm Boudreau, I might go to Mikko and say, hey, Mikko, from now on, can we just go back to the move that you've been successful with throughout your whole career?
Well, what's really funny about this is that he's 2 for 14 in his last 3 years, and he's got 41 career shootout goals. So he's still 4th all time in shootout goals.
That's my point.
And he has been in this type of slump. Just imagine how electric he was.
Exactly, and that's
his first. He was automatic
point for me because I'm pointing at that number. I'm saying, Mikko, nobody was better than you.
Yeah,
and it was 95% of the time you were going to the same move, and it's almost like when you're a dominant football team and it's like you feel like you can break the huddle, tell those guys, here's what we're running, try to stop us.
Yeah.
And that was kind of what Mikko was like in the shootout. Here it's coming. I'm coming up my forehand. I'm going to go forehand to backhand, try and stop me. And people couldn't stop him. And now all of a sudden it's like, well, if he knows that I know that he knows that I think he knows that I know that I think he knows I'm going this way, just don't overthink it. But as a coach, I always feel like if I'm going to get beat, I want to get beat with my best guy in the best spot. And if you beat me with that, great. But if I lose and I got one of the best shootout guys in the history of the league sitting on the bench, then I'm kicking myself.
Yeah, and I will say, so Stahl, I asked Stahl after the game last night because I was in the elevator and I was looking and seeing, I do this often. I look and just see. I know you love it. Is see what the people on Twitter are saying, and everybody was flipping out that Stahl just scored his 40 and was sitting on the bench. That Zucker's got 30 and was on the bench, and blah 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 blah. So I asked Stahl after the game, and Stahl's like, "Look, it's not my bread and butter. Historically, my numbers suck, and I would prefer to have somebody else score." He says this, and you and I have discussed this so many times, and I don't think that fans really understand this, that great breakaway players and great goal scorers sometimes are not great in the shootout. We saw it with Gaborik forever, and what's so ironic about the Gaborik comparison is that when Gaborik was awful in shootouts and Jacques Lemaire stopped using him, essentially, and people would ask me why, I would point to guys like Jerome McGinley and Eric Stahl as perfect examples of great goal scorers who were just Joe Sakic. Guys, there are great goal scorers that just suck in the shootout sometimes.
Right. Well, who was as good as anybody in the shootouts for the Wild this year?
Yeah.
Chris Stewart.
Yeah.
Would you call him like an elite goal scorer
no.
in the National Hockey League? No, but yet he was on a roll, and Bruce kept going to him.
So some fan asked me yesterday on Twitter, he goes, "This is what," or he just made a comment like, "This is what happens when you don't have Stewie," and I would have been like Stewie would have played this game, come on. Anyway, I will say we just mentioned the Italy trip. One of the great people that came with me on last year's Ireland-Scotland trip was John Hedges. He runs Fixology Repair, which is a great place if you have a broken cell phone or computer screen or anything. John Hedges can fix it. It's they got one at the Mall of America. They got another great one that they just opened up in downtown Minneapolis.
There are some things in life that you just can't live without. Now, whether it's a special piece of jewelry, a watch, or even your smartphone, you want it in working condition. At Fixology Repair, we are committed to restoring your pieces so that everything works or fits the way it ought to. Watch servicing, chain repair, and broken screen replacements are just a few of the services that we offer at our 2 locations, Mall of America and the Skyway in downtown Minneapolis. Please visit us at fixologyrepair.com or at fixologymn on Twitter to learn more. Mention this ad and get a 10% discount on our services.
We are back. Great Twitter questions, Anthony. People just love when you show up. Not not to jinx
I
it.
love people.
Not to jinx it, Anthony.
Jinxes aren't real.
But Eric Stahl should become the next goal-scoring leader for the season-breaking Gabrix 42. Does this buy Stahl an extension on his contract? They can start talking to him after July 1 this year. He is turning 34, though, in October, I believe it is. We've seen in the past that sometimes if you overspend on an extension, that the guy could just go belly up. Would you risk him going into his last year on the final year of the contract?
I would look to extend him, and for a couple reasons. Number one is I believe that when you look at the man, he doesn't look like a guy that is likely to start to hit a major downward spiral right now. He's in great shape. He takes care of himself. He's just such an even keel guy. I don't think. What would, if you, let's say you're able to get him to, and it's going to come down to obviously the dollars and the term. So if you're Minnesota, if you're the Wild, you're going to say, look, we'd love to keep you here for 2 more seasons. Stahl might say, hey, I'd like to play for 3 more, and maybe that becomes the dilemma that all right, we have to knock the number down if we're going to give you the 3rd year. And all of that's a valid negotiation, and that's the challenge for GMs. Everybody on the side just says, well, yeah, I'd love to have him for another year. Well, no, he's not going to sign for 1 more year. So you're going to have to give something in order to get him back. Let's say next year he's a mid-30s goal guy, and let's say that there starts to be a slight downturn. This guy would still be a valuable player inside your dressing room if he's a 20-goal scorer, because he plays with anybody. He plays in any role you ask him. He doesn't bring any ego to the table, and yet he's just a high-quality competitive guy that I think would be a tremendous influence on younger players. Now, that's hard to assign a value to that, but maybe you do something where you do an incentive addition to the contract.
Well, you can't do that. He's not allowed. He would have
but
to
he could if he had finished his contract.
Yeah. No, because he'd be technically going into his 35 year, and it would not be a 35-year-old rule that he has.
Isn't this? I thought this contract ended at 34.
It ends at 34, but he doesn't turn 35 until the next season. So essentially, so the point is, so just so you know what Anthony's talking about is that you are allowed to give performance bonuses in 3 different examples. 1 is entry-level deals. 2 is a 1-year deal on a 35-plus old player, a 1 year only, and then the other is if you're severely injured for the year going into your last contract.
So I think if you're I have no idea what the numbers you're talking about, but if you get him at anything close to the same average value per year that he's signed right now, I'd be willing to say, let's give the guy a 3-year deal.
I will say one concern I have from is that I do think that at times he does look tired, like especially on the second of back-to-back. So that to me shows that age is catching up a little bit, but it's not affecting his hands, which is when to me is you get really worried. And so that would be my other thing. There's one other thing that concerns me again from a beat writer, and this is going to be too much technical mumbo jumbo, but there's a potential lockout season in 2021. His contract ends at the end of 18-19. So the problem is that say you offer him right now a 2-year extension, that takes him into the lockout year, or a 3-year deal. He's going to want lockout protection, which means that you have to. What Craig Leopold would be willing to do is, are you willing to pay him in say the first year of your contract $8 million in real money to make sure, because Eric is going to want to make sure that he is paid in case there's half a season missed or a full season. So it gets a little tricky, and that's another reason why with Koivu they did it immediately, because they had his end right before the potential work stoppage. So it's just one of those things where now, again, what you're going to start to see is any contract from now on that goes into that 2021 season, you're going to see that in the year before or the year after, they're making actually a lot more money than they do in that year, where all of a sudden you're going to see they make $2 million in the year of the potential lockout. And so, but I will say, Eric, every time I talk to him, he pointed out again last night how much he wants to stay here forever. Right. His family loves it here.
Which is why I'd want to keep him here.
And to me, I think he's going to take he's not going to be looking to break the bank. He knows, he just saw in the years coming up that perfect fits matter. And right now he thinks this is a perfect fit,
Right.
both family and
Which is
professionally.
why I think the term can trump the salary.
Mike Wheeler asked, why did Nino open the shootout? We kind of, over the 30 goal scorers, we talked about that. Josh Pop asked, how big have the third and fourth lines been for Minnesota? Seem to be playing well at the right time of the year. Lines 1 and 2 tend to cancel themselves out. Who has been the biggest surprise from in your opinion, on those third and fourth lines?
Well, lately, Charlie Coyle's been awesome, and I don't necessarily think I'd call it a surprise, because I think, by and large, the reason that it's been so significant is because he wasn't having a great season prior to that. So I think that's his elevating his game has been huge, and that's going to be the big challenge for Minnesota heading forward. If he, I know they started the game last night with Matt Cullen, and Jordan Greenway together. I don't know if we'll see those three together again in the future, but if they can get something like that as a third line, I mean, that's really where, when the master plan for this season was put in place, I think there were visions that Luke Cunningham would be a part of that group going into the playoffs. And so now if those three can become a viable option, because I think the Eriksson Ek and Winnick and Foligno line that's been a solid fourth group, and they've done some things where they've swung momentum in games with a physical forecheck shift. Eriksson Ek's been better on face-offs. I mean, there have been a lot of things they've done that makes them a more viable fourth group.
Well, it's funny that you said that, because last night was just, to me, bad luck. Like, I thought that they played a really good game, except for the one shift where that Nashville wound up scoring on. And what was really funny about that is that Boudreau kind of insinuated to me the other day that he didn't want to throw Eriksson out for any more defensive zone draws. And what happens is, on that shift, is he gets beaten cleanly, and it's a goal. Again, I think in that case, Foligno probably should have fronted. Yossi didn't. Then a knuckle puck, bad luck goal. If that wasn't their first shift of the game, and he was trying, and again, Boudreau's trying to roll four lines there, I bet you if that's even the second shift and it's a D zone draw, we probably see him come back to a different center. But because it was their first shift, and he's trying to roll four lines, he throws Eriksson Ek out there, who had just lost 8 of 9 faceoffs against Boston, and what happens? He loses the draw clean, and it's a goal.
He does, but let's keep in mind, Boston and Nashville are two of the toughest matchups in terms of opposing centers on faceoffs that Eriksson Ek will face all season long. He's been much better on faceoffs lately, and he's up at 41% now for the year, when he was down in the low 30s for most of the first half of the season.
Yep. Let's go through some more Twitter questions, kind of quick hit. Just funny enough, Tyler Strickland just pointed out lately that he's been getting the sense from Stahl that he badly wants to stay. Would he take a discount type things? And we just talked about that. Kent asks Detlefson, sorry if I mispronounced your name, who drinks more wine, LaPanta or Russo? I would say you, wouldn't you?
Most nights.
Yeah, I would definitely say that.
We've put it to the test a few times. Let's just say that a lot of
some of your Sunday dinners, we'll go through a lot of bottles of wine.
You feel like when it's time to clean up that you're destroying the evidence rather than just taking out the garbage. When all of a sudden I'll be like, "Holy mackerel! There's a lot of empty bottles here."
Yeah. No, we've you hold your liquor pretty good though. You never know. Luke Cahill,
practice.
Yep. Luke Cahill, and of course I just freaking got rid of it, but it was something like, what do you expect in these next 2 Dallas games? The Wild could either put the dagger in them or kind of give them new life.
Well, I really thought last night Dallas's win against Philadelphia was huge. I mean, the season's over if they don't win that game, and I think right now Dallas is not the same club, and you can just sense it. Without Bishop in goal, there's just a different feel there. It's a little bit of the more of the same kind of thing with what's plagued them over the last couple of years, lack of goaltending. And I just, these are games you have to find a way to win. They're not going to roll over and just hand you 2 points. But at the same time, I think we're down to 5 teams for 4 spots, and Dallas is not one of them.
Yeah, and we'll go through Twitter questions right after this, but I did want to mention Tony Hoaglund, State Farm Insurance. Again, he's my State Farm agent. He's Jim Souhan's State Farm agent. Hopefully I'll never need him, unlike the Beverly Hills incident. But hear from Tony Hoaglund.
Right now, 1 in 3 drivers is cruising around in a state of skepticism about just how much value their car insurance company is delivering. If you are one of them, State Farm agent Tony Hoaglund in Champlin can help you get to a better state, because he'll talk with you, listen to you, and help you put together a policy that has you written all over it, from cost to coverage, all backed by 24/7 customer support. Feeling less skeptical? Then call State Farm agent Tony Hoaglund in Champlin and officially get to a better state with State Farm. And you can reach Tony at 763-421-4900.
Michael Brannon asks, at this point, would it hurt to give Eriksson Ek a chance in overtime? It's funny that Michael Brannon asked that question because it was last night I was watching that overtime and I was thinking to myself, remember the one game that the Wild won in overtime? It might have been a Dumba goal. It was somebody, they won a game in Nashville where all of a sudden Boudreau threw out Jordan Schrader in overtime because
that was last year.
Yeah, and it was who scored the goal?
Schrader
made the play.
The goal. I don't remember who scored the goal, but it was Schrader's
Zucker
assist.
or was it Zucker or Dumba? But either way, it was like all of a sudden I remember thinking like there's an example where he went with speed. He got tired of losing in overtime and he went with a guy that.
Well, and Schrader had a good game that night, if you remember. So it was. I think he was just trying to ride the hot hand.
But I agree. Like let's see some different players. Jason Malley, Wild OT drives me crazy. We've talked this to death. But this is saying, what is the thought process to let the other team stand behind the net waiting for someone to get open? In football, D-backs can only cover wide receiver for so long. I wouldn't, like in those situations, I think that if Charlie Coyle goes and chases him behind the net, that'd be ludicrous and you'd wind up getting burned anyway.
3-on-2
but I
by
do
definition.
I do think that in that situation, the league loves to change rules. There should be a time limit back there in overtime. There's 5 minute 3-on-3. Twice last night. Once Ryan Ellis, the other one, it was Subban. Both times back there for 20, 25 seconds. Like, come on. Give me a freaking break. Laurent asks updates on other prospects like Sokolov and Kapanen. Sokolov, the Wild have until June 1. Same with Kapanen. They have Kopkin, right, the goalie. Wild have until June 1 to sign them both. Chuck Fletcher makes it very clear to me that they plan to sign Sokolov, who again has 50 goals this year, was traded to Barrie, playing well. Kopkin, and I get the impression it's a different, that they don't think the world of him as a prospect, and I get the impression that it's going to kind of be like up to him whether or not he wants to sign. Steven Strom asks, for the Wild to make a deep run this postseason, give me 3 things that must happen or change.
Well, I think let's assume that they're going to face the Winnipeg Jets in the first round. So, number one, Dubnyk has to outplay Connor Hellebuyck. And I really think the series comes down to that. If Dubnyk is as good or better than Hellebuyck, Minnesota can win the series. Then special teams are going to be a key because Winnipeg will take penalties. They're one of the least disciplined teams in the National Hockey League. We saw it again last night against the Boston Bruins, and they put themselves in a terrible spot after they were playing with a 2-goal lead in the third period and wound up winning the game anyway in extra session. But that kind of
refs
stuff,
throw the whistle away in
they do,
playoffs.
But it's still relative. So if they put the whistle away and instead of Winnipeg taking 5 penalties and Minnesota taking 3, now it's 3-1 or 3-2, discipline is still going to be a key. So Minnesota has to be able to take advantage of that. And they have to, but you have to be able to take advantage of it by scoring on the power play. And right now their power play is in a little bit of a slump. So I think that's got to be a factor. And then to me, the biggest thing is Jared Spurgeon has to be in the lineup.
Which leads me to my next question. TJ Voigt asks, if Spurgeon is able to come back in the playoffs, what demon comes out? Obviously, I would think Ryan Murphy. I would think you'd play Prosser against Winnipeg.
Yeah, I like Prosser and Sealer against Winnipeg.
Exactly.
And frankly,
so
those guys
just comes out.
Yeah, boy, have those guys been good.
Yep. Did I interrupt you? Did you have another point you want?
No. I think that if you're talking about 3 things, I think you got to have better goaltending. You have to have the combination of discipline and making them pay when they take penalties, and you need Jared Spurgeon.
Stephen Miller, we talked about Bob Motzko and the Gophers at the beginning, but Stephen Miller asks, how fast do you think that he can rebuild the Gopher roster to compete at the level they're used to?
Immediately.
Okay. Why is Greenway eligible for the playoffs despite signing after the trade deadline? Because he is, that's John Hedges from Fixology. Look at that. The reason is because he's on the Wild's reserve list. If you are not...
He's a drafted player.
Exactly. He's a drafted player. He's on the reserve list. To give you I'm trying to think of an example where if the Wild... well, it's kind of the same thing as... I'm trying to give you an example where a guy would not be eligible. Well, if the Wild signed a college free agent right now.
College free agents are the guys that can't.
Bob asks, was the Wild's anticipated addition of Greenway one of the reasons why they were willing last summer to send Tuck to Las Vegas? I assume it was a bad autocorrect there. Lost wages. Oh, unless that was a joke. I get it. Ha. No, I don't think so. I really don't. I mean, to me, I think, well, if you remember, they basically gave them a choice between Kaprizov. The way I understand it is that essentially McPhee had a choice between Kaprizov, Greenway, and Tuck. And I think that at that point, Kaprizov was somebody that they weren't convinced was ever going to come here. And I think if you had a choice between Tuck and Greenway, you were going to take Tuck. So if the Wild could have given up Greenway, it probably would have been Greenway.
Probably, and bottom line is that it was all designed because they didn't want to lose a defenseman in the expansion draft.
Yep.
So, I mean, you had to give something up.
John Hedges, we'll give you a second question because you were sponsor of this great show. Does anyone know exactly what Koivu and Cullen do to get booted from the faceoff circle so often? And don't say cheating. They cheat! I wrote a story for my previous publication a couple years ago. Actually, it was last year in the playoffs. Remember the one game in St. Louis where it was just absurd, where the linesman, I hate to say it, but I'm pretty sure it was Steve Barton, who's the linesman that got hurt last night, where basically it was
booted
just...
Koivu like 9 times.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. Like, and I called a couple linesman friends and them the next day, and they told me who they're the toughest cheaters in the league, and coincidentally, the Wild had 3 of them at the time, and now a 4th one that was in the list is now on the team. But this linesman said 3 of the biggest cheaters in the NHL were Stahl, Cullen, and Stahl, Hansel, and Koivu, and the 4th he pointed out was Cullen and Thornton and people like that.
Well,
but,
and Nico he's a
linesman,
big leverage guy on the draw,
right.
So he does press the boundaries, no question about it. But I also think he's treated a little unfairly because I think there's some grudges because of how much he barks at the linesman afterwards.
There's zero doubt about that.
And there was the game here against Boston. Stahl got thrown out about 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
Cullen got kicked out a couple times, like before he really even entered the circle.
Yeah.
Which it just makes you wonder, okay, well, I got it, that the linesmen are disappointed that they don't get more respect from these guys. But the bottom line is the linesman, that's got to take a back seat to just enforcing the rules the way they're supposed to be enforced.
But I will say, I mean, Koivu's his own worst enemy.
He is.
I mean, last night, he is so lucky that TJ Luxmore didn't make an example out of him. I mean, I have never, when he took the hooking penalty and Koivu, I think, felt the guy dove, and he got in that guy's face and would not stop screaming.
Yep.
That young ref, I was convinced that he was going to be like, "You don't treat me like this. Who the hell, you know?" And that's his own worst enemy, and he has an inability to control himself. The worst thing that ever happened to Mikko Koivu post-game was them turning the 10-minute quiet down period for media to 5. Because we get into the game after a loss, and it's like we don't even ask for him anymore because he needs time to calm down because he is such a competitor. And on the ice, these officials, man, they hold it against him. Yeah, especially the linesmen.
They obviously do, and we've both heard stories from linesmen about some of their interactions with Mikko, and I'll take his competitive nature forever. I'll line up with him on my side in any way, shape, or form. But the bottom line is, he is one of the better face-off guys in the league, and he's one who pushes the boundaries a little bit more than others.
And it's hurting him right now because if you've noticed, the last 25 games, he has lost more than he's won. He is struggling.
And he's getting booted out a lot.
And which I think leads to his frustration because he takes immense pride in that. Carson, and again, we'll run through these quickly because I think we're getting pretty long in the show. Brandon's just fell asleep over there. Carson asks, what player on the Wild is obsessed with coffee as much as you guys? Probably Zach, Nino.
I see the same guys every single day at Starbucks just before we get on the bus, and it's Jason Zucker, Nino Niederreiter, Zach Parisi, Matt Cullen. Those 4 hit Starbucks at the same time I do, right before bus departure time every day.
Before it was Ralston, he and I used to go to Starbucks all the time on the road together. Before on the way, and before it was always Nino, Pominville, Porter, and Parisi always going to Starbucks together. DB, too many worries about the first-round matchups. Nobody saw the Hawks losing to the Preds 4-0 last year. Who might be the surprised early exit this year? I don't think Vegas would be a surprise, though. Just get in, stay healthy, and a hot goalie. If you're not considering them a surprise, I do think Vegas is going to lose in the first round.
I do, too. Either one of St. Louis or Colorado knocks them out, and So let's say the biggest surprise exit will be Winnipeg.
Yeah, that would be the biggest surprise, Winnipeg or Nashville, because they're the front runners. Hello from Kauai, Mary O'Neill says, "What's up with Granlund? What a great view! Oh man, I wish I was in Kauai right now. One of my favorite places." What's up with Granlund? I mean, he was, it's funny. I mean, he made the play of the game last night, 2 stall.
Yeah, it was unbelievable.
But man, was he bad before that. I'm sorry. Like that one shift, 2 before he made that play, when he was twice on rushes, back checked, like he didn't know the back checker was coming. And lost
one of them was, it almost made you stop. Like, did I just see that the way I saw it? But he had his pocket picked from behind. I don't know. He's had moments over the last couple of weeks where I haven't thought he's looked like he's at 100%. And then at the same time, you look and he's sitting at 60 points. He had 69 last year when he did
help a bunch of 5-point games last month.
He did, but the bottom line is he had 69 last year when it was very evident that he was Minnesota's best forward all of last season. He's got 6 games left now. I mean, so say he ends up at 65 or 66, he's going to end up very close to where he was a year ago. So it's hard to look at it and say there's something wrong with him. But when he's on, he can make plays like nobody else on this roster, including the play on the game tying goal by Stahl last night.
Let's just run through. Nate Adams asks most eligible GMs to hire if Fletcher is out. My biggest thing is, do you go? A lot of it will depend on who's available. Like again, this is total hypothetical. But and this is for any team in the league. If all of a sudden Stan Bowman is fired, I think if Stan Bowman is fired on Monday after the season, there's going to be a lot of GMs freaking out. And then again, I think there's going to be. Paul Fenton from Nashville, Billy Guerin, Tom Fitzgerald. There's a lot of newbies coming up. Marty Brodeur. There's a lot of those type of things that you're going to hear a lot about after the season, no matter who is the GM. But there could be a lot of GMs and coaches out. Again, no coaches fired all season long. Unheard of in this league. You know what, Jack? Great question on what kind of offseason changes do you expect, if any? That would depend on the way that the season ends. And definitely, you know what, ask me again next week when we have a little more time. Question for Anthony, red sauce or white sauce, from Derek G. Johnson.
Red sauce, 100%.
Yep. And here's Generous Carriage asks, when on the power play, Suter and Dumba seem to cross over to their offsides after the Wild has set up in the zone. Is there a reason why they don't do it before the faceoff? Answer that quickly.
Well, on the face-off, they want to be on their strong hand because it helps them keep the puck in the zone. You're on your forehand up against the boards, so you have a better chance to hold the zone. But then as soon as they get control in the zone, they want to both be in a one-timer situation. So it puts Dumba on his off wing, Suter on his offside, so they can both take a pass for a one-timer.
Or Suter not take the one-timer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But he's a threat because he's on that side. He can shoot the puck right off the pass.
Yeah. Is there anything that you might not agree with me, but the homestand before, is there anything more frustrating than watching Suter pinch into the left circle and then not unleash a shot and then eventually get it?
Yes, but
blocked?
Here's all I'll say is
just shoot the freaking puck.
And I've talked to Ryan Suter and Zach Parise about that exact thing. And they both have said that it's crazy because they had almost word for word the same answer when I asked them about power plays at different points over the last 3 or 4 seasons. And whenever the team doesn't score for a while, fans get all riled up like, well, just shoot it, just shoot it, just shoot it. And both of them said, I'd like to bring a fan down there and just have them stand behind me and say, here's what I'm seeing right now.
Right.
Where in the world would you like me to shoot this puck through the forest of arms, legs, sticks, and bodies?
I don't know. A couple of those, though. I usually buy that because when you're in the press box, you don't appreciate the lack of time and space and guys in lanes.
But so if you continue to just pound, now you're Matt Dumba, driving pucks into guys' shin pads and deflecting out to neutral ice all the time. So Ryan Suter is never going to be recognized as a guy with like the big shot, the dangerous guy from the point on the power play. And yet, if you look over his career, he's in the top 5 in the league in assists on the power play for defensemen.
Right.
Because he's very efficient getting pucks through to the net, which create opportunities.
Yeah, but I'm talking about these 25-foot shot areas with guys with traffic. And I could tell you right now, if Chuck Fletcher was sitting here, he would say, what drives me nuts about our guys is they don't shoot the puck for rebounds.
Yep, no doubt.
And sometimes that's the play.
If you don't think you can get the puck through to the net, let alone score, just get the puck through, Suter is determined, And I've talked to him about it, that, look, what good does it do me to force a shot and have it get blocked? If I know I can get it on goal, I'll take it, because then I can create something off a rebound. So the Wild coaches have a number of times this year when things have slumped have made that exact point. We got to shoot more often. We got to shoot quicker. We got to shoot more frequently. And then there isn't a tremendous change in mentality, and all of a sudden you'll see these guys score 8 power play goals in 6 games or something like that. So they've got players that I think are a little better than what you give them credit for.
We'll end with this note. Vinny LaPanta just comment, Phil greater than Stanley. Go Wombats. And he is. Phil is definitely better than Stanley.
He doesn't have to take care of Phil.
Yeah, Phil and Stanley are Anthony's dogs, and Phil's got personality, and Stanley is dry white toast.
I'll tell you one Phil Stanley story from this morning, just because I know you enjoy the stories. So Stanley's the older dog. He's 5. Phil's 1, and Phil's got some energy. So he's walking around the house, and he's just tormenting Stanley. He's bonking into him, slamming his butt into Stanley's head to try to get Stanley to play with him. Finally, Stanley's had enough and just turns around and starts barking at him and chasing him. So Phil's running for his life. Stanley's chasing him around our house, and Phil has got terror in his eyes. And I mean, the pace these guys are going is unbelievable, around furniture, under tables. And they run around our like kitchen, into the living room, into the office, through the front entryway, through the dining room, back through the kitchen, about 5 times. And I was sitting watching last night's Wild game on TV at the time, and as they go around and around and around and around the table in the living room, and finally Stanley is just, okay, I feel like I've chased him long enough. He makes a right turn into our solarium and jumps up on a couch just to relax. Well, Phil keeps running for about another probably lap and a half before he realizes he's not being chased anymore. So then all of a sudden he stops in the middle of our living room and starts looking around like, well, wait a minute, where's Stanley? So now he bolts around the house, through the living room, up onto the chair, upstairs to see if he went up in the bedroom, in the office to check underneath the desk, into the dining room. And every time he sprints, he stops and is looking around for everything. And it takes him like 5 minutes, which is a long time to be sprinting around our house. Right. Finally, he catches sight of Stanley, who's just laying on the couch in the solarium relaxing. He runs out there, jumps up on the couch, gets his head about probably 4 inches away from Stanley, and just starts like, how dare you stop chasing me and
make me look like a fool.
And the interaction between these two, it made me just laugh out loud. But it was, Phil's not the sharpest knife in the drawer. There's nothing
better than following your wife on Snapchat and her Phil snaps. Like today, she caught just a brilliant one where she's just on him, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, he starts scratching his neck. And then starts eating his hand, like shocked at the thing, like thinking it's a toy, and then puts it down. And I don't know how she catches these moments.
It's because it's nonstop.
Yeah. Well, hey, great show. I just got an advisory. I got the Super Troopers 2 screening tonight with the entire cast, which I'm really excited about. So thanks to Stolkansky for inviting me to that. Again, awesome Russo-Souhan show. Thanks for Anthony for coming in. Thanks to our sponsors, Twill and the Galleria. Fixology Repair in the Mall of America and in downtown Minneapolis and one of the skyways there by the Wells Fargo building. And then our State Farm agent, Tony Hoaglund. This is Michael Russo from The Athletic, Anthony LaPanta from the Fox Sports North. Thank you, Brandon, for producing.
Pretty little city built on a hillside. Music in the bars and fire in the sky. We went to the beach and it was covered in ice, and I used to call it home. So much coming out, there's nothing going in. I know that you feel like you're never gonna win. Oh, but the world won't forgive a winner.
Holiday tips and fun facts from Paul, Kristen, and Dexter at Total Wine & More.
There are over 1 million bubbles in a glass of champagne. Here's to a whole lot of celebrating. Did you know Zinfandel is known as America's wine? Serve it with chocolate for an indulgent pairing.
Need a $10 rockin' gift for your office's gift exchange? Let me help you pick the perfect bottle.
Whether you're entertaining or just bringing the wine, we'd love to share our always low prices and ridiculous selection with you. This holiday, now offering same-day delivery at TotalWine.com. Cheers!
From the kids to Aunt Sue, keep your whole family connected on all their devices with crowd-pleasing gig speed internet from Xfinity. Now that's simple, easy, awesome. Learn more about gig speed internet or other popular plans, now with even more speed. Enjoy faster downloads and a better streaming experience today. Go to Xfinity.com, call 1-800-XFINITY, or visit an Xfinity store for a great offer. Restrictions apply. Actual speeds vary and not guaranteed.